Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 619. My opponent kicked off with the d4 here, and I played knight f6, hoping to get a Grunfeld. And for once, my wishes were realized. He plays the normal moves here. I play g6, plays knight to c3. Yeah, that's one of the main moves here. And then I played d5. That's the Grunfeld. You have to get that d5 move in before he has time to play the e4 push. That's one of the ideas with knight c3, is it supports this pawn push to e4. So d5 now, and he takes, which is the normal move. But then he plays, after I take, he plays knight to f3, which is a very rare move. If we back up two moves, you'll see that knight f3 is played normally on move 4. And the idea is actually to delay this capture and play a different line. So you're avoiding kind of that main line with the exchange of the pawns and kicking the knight. So he plays kind of a hybrid system, or when we get to a standard position but by a different move order. So he took first, then he didn't play e4 right away, but he played knight f3. So I continue in a normal way, just developing my bishop, and now he plays e4. And after I take, he takes back. It's my turn to move, and this is a standard position. And the move here is c5. But I was a little bit confused by the move order, and so I just played a safe move. I know I want to castle eventually. And it turns out this isn't too bad a move. It's an okay way to play. But the correct move here is probably still c5. It's helpful to get immediate pressure against the center before white has time to organize his pieces. So anyway, I castled. He went bishop e2. It's all pretty normal. Now I get in the c5 push. And this allows him to play bishop to b2. So an interesting way of defending the center, although not the best. So we're still in a position where if he would just play rook to b1, getting that rook off of this diagonal and putting some pressure on the b pawn here, inhibiting me from developing my bishop, then this would be a standard position. When he played bishop to b2, we're just out of the opening book here. And there's a couple of different ways to respond to it. I played queen a5 here. The chess engine thinks the best way to deal with this idea of the bishop on b2 is to go ahead and exchange immediately. Take the pawn on d4, then bring the queen out to a5. Now it comes out with check. And notice that because the bishop is on b2, it can't be used to block this check. If the bishop were still undeveloped on c1, or if it had been developed to d2 like it often is, then that would be blocking this diagonal, or he could play bishop d2 to block it. Now he has to block with the knight. And then I get knight c6 in, and this is a good position for black. So this bishop b2 move, it was a bit of a mistake, and I just didn't find the best way to exploit it. Notice the bishop is still loose there, so he can't, he can push that pawn forward, but he gives up the bishop, and if he takes the knight, I'll take the rook. So, so probably you can't play that. You probably can't play d5 there. And I'm getting the typical kind of pressure on the center that you want in the Grunfeld. Yeah, the chess engine thinks that black is equalized here. So the way I play it, queen a5, white keeps the normal opening advantage. He just castles here. I develop my bishop to g4. He takes on c5 now, which was not necessary. He could keep the tension in the center. And there is there's just a lot of choices for black in this situation. This pawn is hanging, and there's always this exchange. I do end up exchanging this bishop for this knight later in the game. It's funny, this bishop, it looks like things are kind of open in the center, but this bishop doesn't seem to have a lot of good squares. So often you do want to trade it off for a knight. And that's the chess engine's suggestion right here. It thinks the best way for me to play this is to grab that knight immediately, trade off that knight. Then play rook to d8, gaining a tempo on the queen. Queen comes out to b3, a good posting, also looking at my b pawn here. And knight to d7, so that if the queen takes, you can attack the queen with the rook and win the bishop. So this pawn is indirectly defended. Rook a to d1, and knight takes c5. And if you compare this position to what happens in the game, you'll see that black is just a lot better here. Black has activated the rook. The remaining pawns are still weak, and it just looks like a good position for black. So that's the best way to play it. And let's see if we look at this. Yeah, the black bishops are still on, and there's still some pressure against c3 there. So as it is, I took on c3, and that relieves some of the pressure right away. White gets those trades in, and then gets to chase my queen a little bit, queen to a5. And then he plays queen to c2. He should play queen to b3 here if we want to compare positions. And you see, if you remember the previous position after knight takes c5, it's a very similar position, but I've gotten my knight all the way out here to an active square. And so I'm just much better developed in this position. White has the edge in development. He's got pressure on my b pawn, and I have to drop my queen back. So that would be still okay. You know, white has some weaknesses too, but that's best play for white in this position. In the game, instead of going to b3, he went to c2, and I go to I get my knight out to c6. So I'm doing quite well here. He goes rook f to d1. And, I think actually these are all kind of small differences in a way. It's never a completely winning advantage. So we're staying in the range of playable positions throughout this. These are just improvements that could have been made along the way. I don't want to give the impression that there were winning moves or losing moves there. So I bring my rook. Let's see, I brought the a rook over. Cancel that. To the d file. I wanted to prepare this knight d4 move. He plays h3, kicking my bishop. And like I said, this bishop doesn't have a whole lot of squares to go to. So I go ahead and trade off for the knight now, thinking that at least I've induced this pawn move over here, so maybe it's a slight weakness. And then I hopped in with knight d4 immediately. So knight d4 is a good idea, but there's a better way to set it up, and here's how the chess engine wants to play it. Wants to take rooks first. Rook takes d1. Bring this rook over to challenge. And then white apparently would prefer to keep the material on here. If white takes, I can just take back with the queen, and I still have this threat of knight d4. And it's just a case where there's also knight to e5. It's just a case of a good knight against a bad bishop, and also white has these weak pawns. So this is all good for black. If white tries rook c1 to keep the material on, then knight d4 immediately. And once again, there's a situation where we can compare this to what happened in the game, and there's just a better position for black. I was in this position. I played knight to d4 immediately without going for that exchange, and he goes queen b2. So he gets to keep the material on. He repositions the queen to a good square, looking at this diagonal and also looking at the b2 pawn, or the b7 pawn over here. And I grab the bishop. So the idea is not to get rid of that good piece, but to damage white's pawn structure. And in this position, I am still slightly better. I've traded in my advantages for some weakening of white's pawn structure. But my advantage here is not as strong as it was in the other line if I were to keep the knight on and just play against this bad bishop here and go after the weak pawns as well. Anyway, knight takes f3 was played. He took back. Now I trade rooks and take on c5. I need to start gathering up some pawns, but now he gets some of my pawns too. And I play rook to c8. So all this is in the range of about even to slightly better for black. It's the material is even. White's pieces are pretty active. His biggest defect is this little damaged pawn structure around the king, and it's hard for me to really exploit that. So this should really be okay for white, just a slight edge to black. He pushes on with f4, and I play rook to c7. I want to control the 7th rank here, chase the queen away from these threats against my pawn so that my queen is free to move. He throws in this rook check. And actually, this is good for me now. I'll show it the position in a little bit. He plays f6 to... Oh, no, I play a... Let's see, what's going on here. He played queen b2 check. I block. And then he played queen b3. So it's this position that becomes good for me. Sorry. It was still okay up to this point. And after queen b3, I'm suddenly winning. So the move he should play here is just king g2. Just sit on the position. The queen is controlling any entry of my queen. And the king has gotten off the back rank, so I don't come in with check anymore. And so white just needed to play a little bit of a defensive move there, respecting the fact that his king side is somewhat weakened and not not being too aggressive, but taking a moment to kind of secure his base here. And this position is about even. So when he played queen to b3, this is actually the losing move. He should lose the game here. and I start out okay. So queen c1 check, and this is a fork. It hits the king and it hits the loose pawn on f4. So that's why I suddenly have a winning edge. It's partly about the material, but also partly about removing the pawn cover around his king. So there's one less pawn. Now queen to g8 is played. It looks scary, but it turns out my king is just safe over here. So all of this is okay for me. Let's see. And then here he played queen to e6. Yeah, sitting on this pawn. Maybe he's going to try and gang up on it. So right here is where I have a winning move. I didn't put it in so that you guys could have a chance to find the winning move for black here. It's black's turn to move. Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away now. The winning move here is rook to c2. Just ganging up on this pawn, and there's no good way. There's no good way for white to defend that pawn. The queen can't hop on this diagonal, right? That square is covered, so there's no good way for the queen to get on that diagonal, and the rook can't come back and defend that pawn either. So I'm just breaking through. There's actually a forced mate in 5 in this position, so that's just a complete win. So I didn't find that. I play a move that's also winning, but it's when you have a short win versus a long win, you go for the short one because fewer things can go wrong. Anyway, I went for the rook and pawn endgame with this move. Queen g5 check. He can just block with the queen now, and I really didn't see anything better here than trading queens. And this is a winning king and pawn endgame too. But, king and pawn endgames, rook and pawn endgames are notoriously tricky and difficult. I thought I was going to get quick pressure on these pawns, but he's in time to defend them. Let's see, I play e5 to blockade these pawns, and so I wouldn't have to always be defending that weak pawn. Also to stop his pawn from coming to f4. Let's see. He played rook to d6 here. And now it's my turn once again, and there's another tactic here. Not as dramatic as the last one, but another tactic. Black's turn to move. What's a good move for black here? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. A good move for black here is rook to c3 check. He can block this, or he can move his king back. I think blocking is the recommended move. And then rook to a3, defending my pawn over here and attacking his pawn and forcing his rook back to a passive position. And that's the best way for me to play it. So maybe that isn't exactly a tactic, but that's just good endgame play. So anyway, I played rook f7. I wanted to defend this pawn so that I could push my my pawns forward, and I didn't want to the king tied down to babysitting this pawn. But now this position is even. I no longer have a winning advantage here. So one wrong move and things can just disappear on you. Let's see. He played a4. I went, I couldn't see any way to make progress over here. I placed my rook over to b7. He went rook to d5. And now, cancel that, rook to d5. Yeah, and now I make a big mistake here. I think actually after these couple moves, I still have some winning chances here. I could play something like rook to b3 check, and he plays f3, and then now I can play h5 because he's let off the pressure from this f pawn here for the moment. So now I don't have to worry about him taking. I can take back with the king. I might want to take back with the pawn anyway there too. But the problem here is I'm ignoring a threat that he has, and I play this move a6. And then he just goes f4 check. And he's taking advantage of the pin. That's what this rook to d5 move did. It pinned my pawn, and I didn't notice that or deal with it. So that forces my king back. And now he trades off and wins a pawn. So this is just even. In fact, now white is a little bit better because of the passed pawn here, and my king is a little bit out of play. Still should be a draw. But the tide is shifted. He goes rook to b4. Is that right? Oh, it's my turn. Oh, rook to b4. Yeah, I was looking at the wrong square. I'm attacking his pawn over here. He advances, and then I attack it again with rook to b5. I have no idea what I was thinking here. I was thinking if he traded rooks, then I have a straight shot to the back rank, and his king is outside the square. Which actually, I think that's not even true. Like if he were to move his king here, that's actually inside the square of the pawn. But for some reason, I was just completely ignoring the fact that he has a pawn over here. And so anyway, the game went on with a few more moves. But obviously that's a win. A win for white. So a sudden turn of events. So anyway, yeah, if you look at my play in this game, I did a pretty good job in the opening and in the middle game. So good play there. I just messed up at the end, so kind of disappointing finish. But a good game overall. Hope you guys like this video. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.